Have you ever had an itch that just wouldn't go away? Maybe it started off as nothing, just a tiny spot on your arm, your back, or maybe behind your ear. You scratched it, maybe put a little cream on it, forgot about it, but then it kept coming back. Days go by. Maybe weeks. It's not painful, but it's there. Persistent. Maybe a little red, maybe flaky. And still, you think, I'm sure it's nothing. But what if that little itch was your body's way of whispering something serious? Something you shouldn't ignore? Now, I know talking about cancer isn't easy. It's scary. It's heavy. And for many people over 60, it feels like something you hear about on the news or in a friend's story, but not something that could be silently developing on your own skin. The truth is, many types of cancer, especially skin cancer, don't show up with fireworks. They don't shout. They whisper. And sometimes they itch. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not to scare you, but to empower you. Because the earlier we notice these signs, the better chance we have at catching something before it becomes serious. And knowledge, your awareness, is the very first step in protecting your health. Now, when people hear the word cancer, they often think of lumps, weight loss, or fatigue. But there's one sneaky symptom that flies under the radar, an itchy spot. Especially in seniors, a persistent itch, even without pain, can sometimes be a sign of basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, or even melanoma, the most serious type of skin cancer. That's why this matters. That's why I'm talking to you today. Because this is something you can notice early, right from the comfort of your own home. Let's talk about how it usually starts. You might feel a dry patch of skin that doesn't go away with your regular lotion. Maybe it bleeds just a little when you scratch it. Maybe it scabs over, but then the scab falls off and it's still raw underneath. It might look like a pimple or a bug bite, or even just a slightly darker or lighter patch of skin. And because it doesn't look serious, we tend to brush it off. That's completely understandable. After all, we've been through decades of cuts, bruises, and skin irritations. Our first instinct isn't to panic. But this is where things get dangerous. When you ignore something like that, especially when it changes shape, size, or color over time, you're missing an opportunity to catch it early. And here's the thing. If caught early, skin cancer is one of the most treatable forms of cancer out there. But the longer you wait, the deeper it grows, and the more complicated things can become. I recently spoke with a gentleman named Arthur. He's 72, retired, living in Arizona. He told me about this one spot on his temple that itched for months. I thought it was dry skin from the heat, he said. He tried switching moisturizers, wore a hat in the sun, but nothing helped. His wife finally convinced him to get it checked. Turns out it was squamous cell carcinoma. The doctor said if Arthur had waited even a few more months, it might have spread beyond the skin. But because he came in when he did, they were able to remove it completely. No chemo. No radiation. Just a small scar and a big sigh of relief. Now, let me pause right here to say this. If you're watching this and thinking, well, I've got a few itchy spots, but I'm sure they're nothing, just take a moment. It's worth having those spots looked at. Because sometimes, nothing is something in disguise. Another thing to watch for is a spot that seems to be growing. Even if it started off as a tiny freckle or mole, any kind of change, getting bigger, darker, lighter, or irregular around the edges, is something you want a doctor to see. And let's be honest, it's not always easy to see every part of your body. The back, the scalp, behind the ears, these are places we don't check every day. So, if you have a partner, a friend, or even a mirror setup that helps, use it. This is your health we're talking about. Some of the most overlooked signs of skin cancer are on the scalp. I know, it sounds strange, but think about how often your scalp is exposed to the sun, especially if you've got thinning hair. A spot up there might feel like a small bump or sore that doesn't heal. And since we're not used to examining our heads closely, these can go unnoticed for a long time. But again, catching it early makes all the difference. And for those of us with age spots, freckles, or long-standing moles, we often think we know our skin by heart. But sometimes even familiar spots can change. And those changes, whether it's an itch, a crust, or a subtle shift in shape, are worth paying attention to. Let's not forget one of the biggest hurdles here, the idea that we're just getting older. We're used to things not feeling quite right, right? A creaky knee, a stiff back, a dry patch of skin. It all blends in. But age doesn't mean we stop paying attention. In fact, the older we get, the more important it is to stay curious about our own bodies. Not fearful, just aware. Your body has been with you through decades of life. It knows how to communicate, but sometimes, we just need to listen a little more closely. If something is nagging at you, physically or instinctively, don't brush it off. Your body isn't trying to be dramatic. It's trying to help you. Now, we've talked about the importance of noticing that itchy spot that won't go away, especially if it's changing in any way. We've talked about Arthur, and how acting early helped him avoid a much more serious diagnosis. And we've touched on how skin cancer can show up in places we rarely look. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. Now, while that itchy spot might be the first clue your body gives you, it's not always alone. Sometimes, skin cancer shows up with quiet companions. Changes so subtle they blend right in with everyday life. You might notice that a certain area of your skin feels just a little different than the rest. Not painful. Not dramatic. Just different. Maybe it's rougher. Or shinier. Maybe it bleeds just a touch if you rub it with a towel after a shower. These are the kinds of things we often chalk up to age. And that's what makes them so easy to miss. I want you to imagine this like a smoke alarm. It doesn't go off with flames, it goes off with smoke. A little warning early on. That's what your skin is doing when something like this pops up. And here's the beauty of it. If you hear that alarm early, you don't have to panic. You just have to act. And in most cases, that simple act can save you a world of trouble down the road. Let me share another story, this time about a woman named Joyce. She's 68, loves gardening, and spends a lot of time outdoors. One summer, she noticed a small pearly bump on her shoulder. It didn't itch, didn't hurt, and it wasn't very big. But something about it didn't sit right. It just didn't belong, she said. When she finally went to her dermatologist, it turned out to be basal cell carcinoma. Now, the good news? It was completely removed in one appointment. No complications. No hospital stays. Just one outpatient visit and peace of mind. That's why these moments matter. We're not just talking about skin, we're talking about your time, your energy, your future. No one wants to spend their retirement dealing with hospital visits and treatments. But when we stay alert and act early, we give ourselves the best chance to stay out of those doctors' offices and get back to living. And let's talk about what getting checked actually means. It's not a big scary ordeal. In most cases, it's a quick appointment with your dermatologist, or even your primary care doctor. They'll take a look at the spot, maybe use a magnifier, and decide whether it needs to be biopsied. And if it does, that's usually a simple, quick procedure that can be done right there in the office. A little pinch, maybe a bandage, and you're done. No drama. But if you skip that appointment, you risk letting something small turn into something big. I know it's easy to delay these things. Life gets busy. You've got grandkids visiting, plans with friends, maybe even a vacation you've been waiting for. But here's what I always say, take care of yourself first, so you can enjoy all of those moments fully. You've worked hard to get to this stage of life. You've earned every laugh, every stroll in the sun, every deep conversation. And the best way to protect those things is by taking just a few minutes to care for the one thing that makes it all possible, your health. Now, beyond just looking at your skin, there are a few daily habits that can make a huge difference in staying ahead of these risks. One of the biggest is sun protection. I know, you've heard it 1,000 times. But here's the thing, your skin still needs it, no matter your age. In fact, skin becomes thinner and more sensitive as we get older, which means it's more vulnerable to damage. A little sun exposure now causes more harm than it did 20 or 30 years ago. And while it might feel nice to soak up that warmth, a few extra minutes without protection adds up, especially over months and years. That's why I recommend wearing a wide-brimmed hat when you go out, especially during midday. Use sunscreen with at least SPF 30, yes, even on cloudy days. And don't forget those sneaky areas like your ears, the back of your neck, and your hands. They get just as much sun as your face but often go unprotected. And here's something not everyone knows. Even if you're mostly indoors, you can still be exposed to harmful UV rays through windows. So if you sit by a bright window reading or watching the birds in your garden, consider applying a little sunscreen, just in case. It's a small habit, but it pays off big. Another thing that helps is moisturizing. Dry, cracked skin can mask early warning signs. But when your skin is healthy and hydrated, it's easier to spot when something's off. Keep a bottle of gentle moisturizer handy and make it part of your daily routine, right after your morning coffee or before bed. And while we're talking about routines, let's not forget about regular self-checks. Once a month, take a few quiet minutes to really look at your skin. You don't need fancy tools. Just good lighting, a mirror, and a little curiosity. Look for anything new. Anything that changed. Anything that feels off. And if you spot something that doesn't seem quite right, write it down. Snap a photo. That way, if it changes again, you'll notice. And if it doesn't go away after a couple of weeks, book that appointment. I know it might feel like a lot at first, but it gets easier. And you're not alone in this. Every year, millions of people face skin issues, and the ones who come out healthiest are the ones who don't ignore the signs. The ones who say, "I'd rather be safe than sorry." And that's you. That's the kind of person who's still watching right now, someone who takes their well-being seriously and knows they're worth the care. And you are worth it. Every single bit of it. You've made it through so much in life already, ups, downs, challenges, and triumphs. Paying attention to your health now isn't about fear. It's about honoring everything you've already built. It's about staying in the game, strong, aware, and confident. And most importantly, it's about giving yourself the time to enjoy what you love without interruption. Now let's take a moment to reflect on why this really matters. Not just the itchy spot, the changes in your skin, or even the doctor visits. It's about something bigger. It's about claiming control over your health in a world that sometimes makes us feel invisible as we age. It's about saying, I may be 60 or 70 or even 80, but I'm still paying attention. I'm still in charge of my body. And let me tell you something powerful. Catching even one early warning sign could be the reason you're here to enjoy the next holiday, the next family birthday, the next sunrise you watch with your morning coffee. See, cancer doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it's just a whisper, a tiny itch, a subtle patch of rough skin. But those whispers, when caught in time, don't get to become screams. That's the power you have. And when you start listening to your body, really listening, you're stepping into a kind of strength that's often overlooked. Now, we've talked about those warning signs, an itchy spot that won't heal, a bump that bleeds easily, a mole that changes color or shape. But there's one more thing I want you to remember. It's not just about what you see on your skin, it's about how it behaves over time. If something doesn't go away after 2 weeks, or if it keeps coming back in the same exact spot, that's your cue. That's the moment to act. Some people wait because they think it's vain to worry about a tiny mark. Others are afraid of what they might find out. But here's what I always say, it's not vain, it's not weak, and it's not selfish to take care of yourself. In fact, it's one of the bravest things you can do. I once met a woman named Ruth. She was 75, full of life, always smiling. She told me about how for years, she ignored a small mole on her leg. It didn't hurt, and I didn't want to be dramatic, she said. But when it started changing color and shape, she finally went in. It turned out to be melanoma. She caught it late, but not too late. After surgery and treatment, she's now cancer-free. But she said something I'll never forget. She said, I wish I had taken it seriously sooner. I wish someone told me that a little spot could matter so much. So if you need a sign, this is it. This is your reminder that no concern is too small, no question too silly. If something doesn't feel right, it's always better to check. It's not about living in fear. It's about living with awareness. And there's nothing more powerful than that. And listen, you're not alone in this. Maybe you're worried. Maybe you've had cancer before and you're scared of hearing that word again. Or maybe you're just tired of the constant reminders to take care of yourself. I get it. But the truth is, these small acts of care are not chores. They're acts of love. Love for your life. Love for your family. Love for the future moments you haven't lived yet. The good news is skin cancer, when caught early, can be treated quickly and effectively. And treatment these days is far better than it used to be. We're talking outpatient procedures, minimal scarring, and high success rates. So don't let fear stop you from seeking the help you need. Let hope guide you instead. Let confidence and self-respect lead the way. Take a moment, right now, and think about your own skin. Think about that one spot you've noticed a few times in the mirror. Maybe it's not itchy, maybe it doesn't hurt, but it's there. If it hasn't gone away, or if it's changed in any way, promise yourself today that you'll call your doctor. Not next week. Not after your next trip. Because the best time to act is before it becomes something harder to fix. And if you don't have any spots like that, fantastic. That's still a win. But now you know what to look for. Now you're equipped. And that knowledge? That makes you stronger. You've come a long way to be here. You've built a life full of lessons, laughter, and love. And you deserve to keep living that life on your terms, feeling confident in your health, and knowing that you're doing everything you can to protect the days ahead. So let this be your gentle nudge. Take a look at your skin tonight. Maybe have someone you trust help you check the places you can't see, your back, your scalp, behind your ears. If anything seems off, get it checked. No shame. No delay. Just action. Just care. And don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Share it. Talk to your siblings, your friends, your neighbors at the senior center. You might be the reason someone else catches something early too. That's how we support each other. That's how we stay strong, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. And if this video made you think, if it helped even a little, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who needs to hear your story. And if you found this helpful, go ahead and click the like button. It helps more people find this important information. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. We talk about real things here. Things that matter. Things that help you take care of your body, your mind, and your life. Remember, small changes lead to big outcomes. One decision. One phone call. One glance in the mirror. That's all it takes to change the course of your health. You've got more chapters to write, more sunsets to watch, more laughter to share. Here's to living fully, bravely, and wisely, at any age.